for coming. Great to see you here. I'm just going to say welcome because I'm going to be turning it over to a fabulously different approach today. This is session number 4 of our It Matters series, and today we're going to tackle the propositions. And I will invite you to take a look at the remaining sessions on the flyer at the back or on our website. I think most of you know that by now. Many of you are familiar. And because we have to cover quite a bit here, I'm going to turn it over immediately to Professor David McEwen, who's going to explain everything to you. Thanks for coming.
All right, thank you. Welcome, everyone. What we're going to do today is we're going to go through the ballot propositions, all 12 appearing on the ballot, along with SMART as well. Let me tell you about that in just a second. Let me remind you that the voter registration deadline is October 20th, which is Monday. So register early and often, vote early and often, but you only have until Monday to get registered. I also want to tell you that I've put together a class which is advertised on the Extended Education website for January to take students to the inauguration. Anyone in the community that's interested in this, you can find out more information, talk to me afterwards, or go to sonoma.edu, EXED. It's open to the community. If you're interested in going to the inauguration and the activities preceding the inauguration, we're going to spend about 10 days in Washington, D.C. All right, the plan for today is we're going to have groups of 1 or 2 students come up and talk about a series of ballot measures. They're going to talk about typically 2 ballot measures in a 5-minute period. We're going to do this for 30 minutes. We'll cover, for example, the bond measures first, 1A, 3, and 12, in 5 minutes. And then we'll go all the way up to Proposition 11. We'll end at 11, then we'll go to SMART to end the program. And then we'll open up to questions and answers. This is going to take us about 28 to 30 minutes to give you a quick spiel about the ballot measures, what they do, who's behind them, maybe a little bit about the money, and then we'll open it up to Q&A and entertain your questions. So if you'd hold your questions until the end, we'll be sure and get them answered. The students have been studying who's been behind the ballot measures, who's been giving money, how the money's been spent. They're the experts. They'll be writing about 300 pages in the Star, 300 words in the Star on Friday. That'll appear next week about each of the ballot measures as well. So we'll be able to follow up some of this stuff. Okay? Yeah, these are upper division, mostly political science students in my Polls 484 campaigns and elections course. So in lieu of the midterm, they had to become experts on the ballot measures. As Ian will tell you, there have been thousands of entries about Proposition 8 and money, so this has been much bigger than a midterm as a project. And they'll probably hate me after this, but let me turn it over first to Garrett Oates and Brendan O'Shea to talk about Propositions 1A, 3, and 12.
Hey guys, I'm Garrett Oates, and we're going to be talking about the bond measures. So Proposition 1A is the High-Speed Passenger Train Bond Act. It proposes to sell $10 billion in general obligation bonds to help finance the construction of a transportation system that would link Northern California to Southern California. The state of California would be financially obligated to pay back principal and interest of the bond measures. Assuming a 30-year payment plan, the state cost would be $20 billion paid directly out of the state's general fund. However, even with the sale of general obligation bonds, the state would still need to raise another $10 billion just to begin construction. This complementary yet necessary fundraising would be done primarily through the private sector and other levels of government. With all this being said, even if Proposition 1A passes and the state is able to sell $10 billion in general obligation bonds, there isn't a guarantee that the high-speed train bond will get built. They would still have to raise another $10 billion just to get the project started. The state currently has $53 billion in general fund bond debt. In addition, the state has not yet sold about $68 billion of authorized general obligation bonds. In 2007-2008 fiscal year, $4.4 billion was taken out of the general fund to pay back already accumulated bond debt. At the state's current rate, in the 2017-2018 fiscal year, $9.2 billion will be taken out of the general fund to pay back bond debt. If the 3 general fund supported bonds in this election are all approved, 6.2% of the state's general fund will be allocated to paying back bond debt. Lastly, this percentage will only increase if voters approve additional bonds in the elections after November 4th. Now, to discuss the other general supported bonds, Prop 3 and 12, I pass it over to Brendan O'Shea.
Hi, I'm Brendan O'Shea. Proposition 3 deals with the California Regional Children's Hospital, and it authorized $980 million to children's hospitals for renovating and giving new equipment and updating the seismic standards. It will cost the state $64 million a year for 39 years. That comes out to $1.75 per person for each Californian. There are many support of this: the League of Women, the voters at California Medical Association, the California Federal Teachers Association, and U.S. Barbara Boxer, our U.S. Senator. There's no official opposition to Proposition 3. Going on to 12, it has to do with the Veterans Bond Act. It deals with giving the it is. I'm sorry, I don't have my. The Veterans Bond Act is an approval of to give each individual veteran an additional $360,000 approved for homes and additional bonds, which would affect the government fund. But it's already been approved by the different bond, it's already been approved by the Senate, but it has to do with just giving an additional, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, I'm sorry. I'll look it up, and then if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Hi, my name is Erica Zame, and I'll be presenting on California Proposition 2. The official title on the ballot is Standards for Confining Farm Animals. This would make it mandatory that farm animals raised for food production must be housed in a manner that they can fully stand up, extend their limbs, and move around freely. This includes calves raised for veal production, pregnant pigs, and egg-laying hens. There are exceptions in this. It would exclude transportation of animals, fairs, rodeos, lawful slaughter, research, and 4-H programs. If this is violated, a person may face a fine and up to 180 days in jail. The official supporter of this prop is Joe Ramsey. He's an attorney at law in Sacramento. The main group is Yes on 2, which is a coalition of the Humane Society along for the Center of Food and Safety. It also has many celebrity backing, such as Ellen DeGeneres, Bill Maher. The California Democrats also support this. The no supporters is the California Coalition for Safe Food. It is an organization of Latino organizers, farm and businesses, labor unions, and agriculture organizations. There are unintended consequences if this passes. It's estimated from a UC Davis study that 3,000 jobs may be lost. The price of eggs will increase to about 25%. By the year 2015, a loss of 90% of the California egg industry, along with accompanying economic output, would also be lost. This would increase egg production by 76%. There is a 5-year adjustment period, and in 2015 it would officially go into effect. Current polling data as of October 1st shows that this is a yes vote of 72%, a no vote of 10%, and undecided is 17%. Now I turn it over to Courtney with Proposition 5.
Sorry. I'm Courtney. Proposition 5 is known as the Nonviolent Offender Rehabilitation Act, also known as NORA. A yes vote on Prop 5 would alter California's parole system and expand the state's current drug treatment program for offenders. New parole terms and treatment programs would be included for parole offenders. New drug programs would also be available to a wider set of parolees and offenders, such as property crime offenders, and as well as this would limit the court's authority to incarcerate offenders who violate their probation or parole. The supporters of Prop 5 are mainly out-of-state billionaires, such as George Soros. He's the chairman of Soros Fund Management. He's donated millions of dollars to this proposition. Jacob Goldfield, he's the former partner of Goldman & Sachs, as well as a senior investment officer from Soros's fund. John Sperling Jr., the son of the University of Phoenix founder. All these men donate money to different propositions across the nation to decriminalize marijuana. The main opposition to this ballot measure is people against the Proposition 5 deception. Notable actor Martin Sheen, who's had a history with drug problems throughout his family, is also an opposer to this. Groups such as MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, the California Police Officers Association, Correctional Supervisors, Narcotics Officers Association, a lot of law enforcement groups are in opposition to this. Governor Gray Davis, or former Governor Gray Davis, and former Governor Pete Wilson, as well as 36 other district attorneys in July, tried to get this taken off the ballot measures, saying it was unconstitutional to take the judge's authority away from them and to give it to a group of 20 people who would decide the fate of these violators. Things such as burglary, larceny, arson, vandalism, as well as DUIs for under drugs would they'd have the opportunity to go to rehab instead of to go to prison for this.
Hello, my name is Enzo Gamar. I'll be talking on Proposition 6 and 9. Proposition 6 deals with criminal penalties and public safety funding. This measure would make approximately 30 revisions to California criminal law, most dealing directly with gang-related activity. In addition, it will add $350 million to the already $600 million funding to the California General Fund for this measure. Proposition 6 will increase spending on crime prevention directed specifically to police, sheriffs, district attorneys, adult probations, jails, and juvenile probation facilities, and other assistances. Proposition 6 will also require occupants who receive public housing subsidies to submit to annual criminal background checks. Proposition 6 will also initiate harsher penalties for persons violating a gang-related injunction, use or possession with the intent to sell methamphetamine, and or felony carrying or possession of firearms. Proposition 6 will also eliminate bail for any undocumented individuals charged with a violent or gang-related felony. Supporters of Proposition 6 include the Alameda County Taxpayers Association, the Peace Officers Research Association of California, and Yes on 6 Committee to Take Back Our Neighborhoods, and also the California Republican Party. People who oppose this ballot measure include the California Teachers Association, the California Labor Federation, the League of Women Voters of California, and a variety of newspapers all over California, including the Los Angeles Times, the San Diego Tribune, the San Francisco Chronicle, and the Santa Rosa Press Democrat. Likely unintended consequences of this proposition include if any occupant does not pass a criminal background check, their entire family would be removed from their housing. It will also establish hearsay statements as evidence when witnesses are unavailable in court for testimony, which is unconstitutionally unethical. It will also, Proposition 6 will also take billions from California schools, hospitals, child care centers, and funding. And it will also fund just more prisons and policing policies. Currently, money spent overall is $1,750,000. Proponents have spent $1.6 million. Opponents have spent only $150,000. Proposition 9. Proposition 9 is a California third victims' rights initiative since 1982. It's a measure aimed at California's criminal justice system, focusing on parolees and life-term inmates looking to get out on parole. This measure provides an opportunity to give victims a chance to put input during the trial process. Prop 9 is also known as Marcy's Law. The poster child for this campaign is Henry T. Nicholas, whose sister, Marcy, was murdered at UC Santa Barbara. What Prop 9 would do is grant crime victims more rights, It will require that victims be notified during every phase of the criminal justice process, including bails, pleas, sentencing, and parole. It will also put restrictions on early release of inmates, require restitution and payments to victims, and lengthen the wait of parole hearings for lifers from 5 years to 15 years. Supporters include Henry T. Nicholas, the Crime Victims United of California, and the Republican Party of California. Prop 9 made the ballot with financial backing by Henry T. Nicholas, who donated $4.8 million to the campaign, however has since stepped away since being indicted on drug, prostitution, and fraud charges. Opponents include teachers, firefighters, public employees, healthcare, home care, and civil rights groups, the League of Women Voters, and the California Democratic Party. Opponents feel a lot of rights suggested in Prop 9 are already guaranteed, making this proposition unnecessary. It threatens spending for schools, healthcare, and social services by committing more money to prison construction and operation. And also in 1982, Prop 8 passed, which led to the creation of Victims' Bill of Rights. Costly changes to the parole policy are unneeded because California already has a strict parole law. The unlikely cause is the physical impact, which would increase money and take away from such persons as firefighters, teachers, education, and healthcare, because the money needs to come from somewhere. Currently, money spent overall is $4,350,000. Proponents have spent $4,200,000, and opponents have only spent $150,000. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Megan Maydall, and I'm going to talk about Proposition 4, which is the Child and Teen Safety and Stop Predators Act, also known as Sarah's Law. It is a constitutional amendment that will, if passed, will formally amend the California Constitution. Prop 4 requires physicians to notify unemancipated minors, parents, or guardians of her intent to have an abortion, and then to wait 48 hours after notice has been delivered to perform the abortion. The law does not require consent from the parents or the guardians for the physician to perform the abortion. Exceptions are in case of medical emergency. The minor can bring in a written notice saying the parents or guardian already is informed that this is what the minor plans to do. The minor can petition the court system to have the requirement waived, or the minor can notify another adult family member in the event of a suspected or known child abuse. However, the physician then has to report the suspected or known child abuse to the proper agencies. The committee in favor of Proposition 4 is Friends of Sarah, the Parental or Alternative Family Member Notification Act, funded by Don Sebastiani and Holman and Jim Holman, who together have given about 80% of the funding for this proposition. Other people in support of the proposition are Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger and Barbara Albee. Those in opposition to the proposition are Campaign for Teen Safety, Project of Planned Parenthood Affiliates of California, California Medical Association, California Teachers Association, California Association of Family Physicians. So far, $7,700,000 has been spent on this proposition, with the proponents spending about $2.5 million and the opponents spending about $5.2 million. So, arguments in favor of the proposition are saying that on a daily basis, older men exploit young girls and use secret abortions to cover up their crimes. More than 30 states currently have parent-family involvement laws like Proposition 4 in effect. Sexual predators impregnate minors and then take them to get an abortion. If the minor had to notify a parent or guardian of the abortion, the sexual predator would be arrested. Therefore, requiring minors to notify parents, guardians before an abortion will help stop sexual predators. Arguments for the opposition is that induced abortion is one of the safest medical procedures for women in the United States. However, the risk of complications increases if abortion is delayed into the second trimester, and this proposition would pretty much delay many women having an abortion. And I think I'm gonna leave it right there and just kind of wait to see what questions everybody has.
Hi, I'm Ian Marlowe, doing Proposition 8, which is labeled, which would eliminate right of same-sex couples to marry. This was actually a constitutional amendment, which was passed on May 15, 2008, to overturn Proposition 22. It was a 4-3 ruling of the California Supreme Court. So Yes on Marriage would amend the California Supreme Court to say only a marriage between a man and a woman is valid or recognized in the state of California. The supporters of this ballot are ProtectMarriage.com, Yes on 8, a project of California Renewal, the National Organization of Marriage California, sponsored by National Organization for Marriage, Californians for Marriage, sponsored by Alliance for Marriage Foundation, Yes on Prop 8, sponsored by Capital Resource Family Impact. The opposition is No on 8, Equality for All, No on 8, Equality for California, Human Rights Campaign California, Marriage Political Action Committee, Task Force California Committee, No on 8, sponsored by National Gay and Lesbian Task Force Foundation Action Fund, Californians Against Eliminating Basic Rights, No on Prop 8, Log Cabin Republicans Against 8, No on 8, National Center for Lesbian Rights Social Justice Fund, No on Proposition 8, Campaign for Marriage Equality, a project of American Civil Liberties Union, Northern California. The likely unintended consequences, there's a lot on the proponent side. Many include the fact that they would have to teach same-sex marriage being the same as regular marriage in schools, that the priest could be sued for hate speech, that private institutions that have dormitories for the teachers would also have to house same-sex couples, but there's also a lot of arguments or factual arguments against a lot of these unintended consequences. It's a civil rights issue. There's going to be a lot of issues on either side. I think that's the biggest part of it. Before Labor Day, the opponents had spent $14 million. After I'm missing one. Basically, the funding, there's a really interesting dynamic with this all, at least in terms of expenditures. The opposition group, they could have been spending, but on the Secretary of State website, they weren't reporting any of this. It was coming out in the news articles, but I wasn't able to track it very easily. Then on, I believe it was October 6th, they kind of hit the whole website with all their funding, and they jumped ahead quite a bit. So it went from $4 million reported in June 30th to about 14. Let's see here, up to $12 million. So it was quite a jump. Let's see here. The top 5 expenditures for supporters of Proposition 8 were marketing communications. The organization was marketing communications, $6 million. The Valley Press, who did mass mailing for $1.2 million. Cardinal Communications, which is phone banks calling people, letting them know, $1.1 million. Bader Association, signature gathering. A lot of this was done before and while the California Supreme Court decision was in process in order to be able to get this on the ballot. And there was about $1 million there. Schubert and Flint, Public Affairs, Legal and Accounting, is $300,000. The top 5 contributors combined was about $9.8 million, and the total amount of expenditures was $12.6 million. So it's 78% of the expenditures are done by the top proponents, or the top firms that were spent on. For the opponent expenditures, Marion Carson, so TV, there's $10.4 million put into that. Lake Research Polling and Survey, there was almost $300,000. Lincoln Crow, office expenses, about another $300,000. Dewey Square, which is a campaign consultant, almost $200,000. And campaign paraphernalia from Will Copy and Print was $157,000. The top combined was $11 million, and the total out of 22, so almost half, a little under half of the total expenditures, total categories of expenditures. Those who have contributed to yes on Prop A are Robert Wilson at $1.2 million, David Bonet of Offices of Bonet, $1.1 million, Bruce Bastian, $1 million, David Maltz, President of Double M Inc. at $1 million, California State Council of Employees Political Action Issues, $500,000, totaling, and these numbers are also a little old. The current figures for total contributions, I believe, are about $55 to $58 million. But the dynamics are still about the same. The opponent's still outspending and outraising the opposition group. But when I got these, it was $17 million, and the top 5 received 28% of their total contributions from these top 5. What else do I want to tell you? Well, for the top 5 contributors, you have for the proponent, yes, I guess I was mixing it up there. So those last statistics were on the opposition group. I don't know if I messed that up. For the proponent group, you have Knights of Columbus at $1.2 million, Field State Company at $900,000, which I also believe opposition on 8 have actually been boycotting, which is a fruit company. American Family Association at $500,000, who also has a member. One of their presidents, I believe, is also a member on the ProtectMarriage.com campaign, and Focus on Family at $450,000, totaling to $24 million in contributions to proponents, which is pretty close. And the top 5 contributors is about 13%. The polls, and these are on September 18th, things have obviously changed, was 38% yes, 55% no, and this is compared to in July, which was 42% yes and 51% no. So the gap's been closing a little bit more for no side, but the funding on yes side has been a lot higher. So that is subject to change. There's a lot going on with this, so wait for your questions. I'm sure you'll have many.
Hi there. I'm here to talk about Proposition 7, which is an initiative statute that for renewable energy in California. Measurement basically requires government-owned utilities generate 20% of the electricity from renewable energy by 2010, which is a standard currently applicable to private electrical corporations. Raises requirements for all utilities to 40% by 2020 and 50% by 2025. Those in support of this amendment, the Apollo Group Corporation, which is a renewable energy company from Arizona. They stand to make a lot of money if this passes, as well as Jim Gonzalez Associates, which is a law firm from California. Those in opposition are PG&E, Edison International, and Sempra Energy, which is an energy company from San Diego. They would tend to lose a lot of money if this would pass. Some likely consequences of this: $3.4 million annually paid by fees from the government, the administrator, everything in that order. There's an unknown impact on state and local government costs and revenues due to the measure's uncertain impact on retail electricity rates. As of 11 o'clock this morning, money spent overall is about $35 million, with those in opposition spending about $27 million, and those in support spending about $7 million. So the opposition, PG&E and Edison, have been outspending them by almost 4 times. It's kind of a big deal. Overall, I checked polling as of August, and 60% of Californians were in favor of this measure passing, whereas 25% were opposed and 5% unknown. The opposition to this proposition has been great, with both the Republican and Democratic parties united against it. However, in the last poll conducted, most of California seemed to be in support of the measure. On the other hand, with the opposition having almost 4 times the funds over the proponents and running constant TV ads proclaiming the negative aspects of Proposition 7, the majority of Californians' support could have changed drastically. The main proponents to this measure, Edison International and PG&E Corporation, have been pumping millions of dollars into the anti-Proposition 7 ads, as it seems they have the most to lose by this measure passing. It makes them, they're getting a lot of their energy from like coal and gasoline sources right now, so it makes them spend more money in order to use more renewable energy resources, better for the economy overall. Proponents such as the Apollo Group Incorporation and Jim Gonzalez and Associates stand the most to gain, as they have connections to renewable energy companies, therefore opening up new markets in California for them to profit from.
Great job.
Awesome.
I'm Ashley Beach, Prop 10 expert. It's the California Alternative Fuel Initiative, and what that means, if this initiative were to pass, $5 billion worth of general obligation bonds would go towards the production, research, and development of alternative fuel vehicles. It would also go towards the production and the research and development of renewable energy resources. It would also create grants for schools to educate and teach students about renewable energy resources. It would also give money to consumers to purchase alternative vehicles. And the supporters, one of the biggest supporters financially is Boone Pickens. He's from Texas, but he owns the Clean Energy Corporation here in California. It's the largest California provider for natural gas. And he is also the largest contributor, like I said, financially to the supporters of this initiative. Obviously, because if this were to pass and we would make more alternative fuel vehicles, his company would benefit because they're the largest provider, like I said, of natural gas. The opponents are the League of Women Voters, Sierra Club, Coalition of Concerned Scientists, among others, and 2 newspapers, San Francisco Chronicle and the LA Times, have openly opposed Proposition 10. On the Secretary of State website up here, I searched for financial activity from the opponents. I still haven't found any, but a lot of times research says as it gets closer to the election date, more financial activity will probably develop, hopefully. The unintended consequences if this initiative were to pass, obviously fiscal impacts, it would be about $10 billion to repay the $5 billion bond, so we're just paying almost $5 billion in interest on this, and it would take about 30 years to repay. We'd also have to fund for more natural gas stations. There aren't a lot of gas stations out there yet that provide natural gas, and there aren't as many mechanics that are trained to work on natural gas vehicles, so we'd also have to train and provide more stations for that. And also the arguments that, like, the concerned scientists believe that it won't actually, the alternative fuel and renewable energy resources from this proposition won't actually help the environment, and that they're not setting higher standards on these vehicles for smog checks and things like that. So that's what I got. Thanks.
Okay, we'll be telling you about Proposition 11. It's initiated constitutional amendment to Article 21, and it would change the way that district boundaries are drawn for the State Assembly, Senate, and Board of Equalization. Basically, anyone would be welcome to apply to be on this board. Those would be filtered down to a committee of 14, with 8 being chosen, and those 8 choosing the additional 6. 5 would have to be Republican, 5 Democrats, and 4 independents. And then they would draw the district boundaries, and they would need an agreement of 3 votes from each of the parties to create those boundaries. The main supporters of this are Arnold Schwarzenegger and his California Dream Team, which are one of the biggest financial supporters as well. Others include the American Association of Retired Persons, the League of Women Voters, and the North San Diego County NAACP. Opponents include Senator Barbara Boxer, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, the California Democratic Party, the NAACP Defense Fund, and many other civil rights organizations.
There's an unintended consequence if this measure was to pass, in that, well, I don't know if it's unintended or not, but it would redistribute the power to draw legislative boundaries to mostly into the governor's office, because the California auditor is the one that selects the initial 60 applicants from the pool, and the auditor is appointed by the governor, and so most of the power to redistribute these districts would then lie with the governor. And there hasn't been a whole lot of money spent on this so far. It's been $7.6 million has been spent. $7 million of that was from the proponents, like Governor Schwarzenegger's Dream Team, and only $675,000 has been spent by the opponents because they don't expect it to pass. Most of the money for the proponents has come from Governor Schwarzenegger's own fundraising mechanism, which is the Dream Team. The opponent contributions have been very small. There's not been a whole lot of financial opposition, and they haven't spent a whole lot of money on media. Do you want to talk about the ads?
Can we tell a question?
Okay. And let's see here. Originally, this was supposed to include a redrawing of congressional districts, but Democratic representatives threatened overwhelming spending, so they dropped that part of this reform. And like I said, little opposition money has been expended because they don't expect it to pass. Previously, Prop 77 failed to pass, with 59% of California voters voting no. That was the one that was going to give it to a 3 retired judge panel. And September polls from PPIC have this at 38% favorable, 33% opposed, and 29% undecided. So voters don't really know what this measure is about yet, and there's only a 38% in favor of it, which doesn't give it a statistically large chance of passing.
Well, and if you've noticed, the proponents just recently released an ad in favor of the proposition. Basically, it doesn't tell you much about it. Just goes over who's supporting it. Doesn't mention Arnold Schwarzenegger. I think they're trying to distance him from the campaign a little, since their argument is that it's going to take corruption out of drawing boundaries, and they argue that politicians are opposed to the measure in the ad.
After that question, so.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Our measure is the SMART Train, so I'm going to give you a little background information first and then talk about some of the numbers. The SMART Train is designed to create a viable alternative to public transportation. It's set to run parallel to the Highway 101. It's going to be upgrading the current rail system that we currently have running through our city here. There's going to be 14 stations running from Cloverdale down to Larkspur, where there's going to be a ferry that goes into San Francisco. Although some of those 14 stations won't actually have park and ride stations where you can park your car and then ride the train. The proposed overall cost for the train is $440 million and an additional $90 million for a bicycle and pedestrian path. The train is set to run at 30-minute intervals about 14 times a day, and the train is going to be running on diesel fuel. So.
It's proposed the a quarter-cent increase on sales tax is going to pay for it, and the train is planned to be up and running by 2014 with the pathway that connects all 14 stations for pedestrians and bicycles. That won't be completed in 2029, and they're planning that fares and people riding the trains will help fund that. Some current polling data. In 2006, there was a similar measure on the ballot, and it only failed by 1.4%. And between Sonoma and Marin, that was about 1,500 votes. That was what made it short, because they have to reach a
66.7% to pass it because of it raises taxes. And back in 2006, 83% of voters in Sonoma wanted it to pass, and Marin kind of shot it down. They only had 57% support. As of right now, polling shows that there's 83% in Sonoma support again, and over 71% in Marin. So that's drastically different from 2006. So we don't know how accurate that is as of right now. And so now Matt's going to talk about.
The yes group for this is the North Bay Transportation Alliance. So far, they've spent around $172,000. However, they've received $380,000 in contributions. So right now, they're sitting on about $230,000, which either means they're going to make a final push towards trying to get this measure passed in these last final weeks, or they're going to move the money somewhere else. The top expenditures for this yes group is Tramutola LLC, which is a political consulting firm out of Oakland. They basically design a strategy plan for the group and do campaign marketing and things like that. They've spent $53,000 paying them for those types of things, which is roughly 30% of all the money that they spent. The second expenditure is for Godby Research, who is also like a polling and survey research committee, and they also find out projected ridership of the train and things like that. And they've also spent $50,000 to them. So those two companies combined have received about 60% of the total funding. Some of the unintended consequences of building this train are the unforeseen costs. Considering that the California budget has just been cut, the State Transit Assistance Fund was being counted on to supply money for this train, but now that the budget has been redistributed, Smart Train isn't going to be getting those funds, so they're going to have to find that money from somewhere else, however that is. Also, there's quite a lot of controversy about how much freight trains will be running through on these tracks. As of right now, the No Group is saying that a lot of the freight trains are going to be running through on this rail line, and which is going to cause a lot of noise and things like that. But the Yes Group is saying that the Smart Train is going to kind of prevent them from running too many trains through, and it'll require them to create quiet zones and things like that. Also, environmental impacts such as environmental damage from creating the train path and the train using diesel fuel. So,
really quickly, the No campaign. The main committee behind that is the North Bay Citizens for Effective Transportation, and so far they've only spent about $1,700 on mailers and just little things here and there. And it's not as mobilized as the Yes side. They have over $60,000 left, and it's all primarily coming from one wealthy individual, Peter Palmer, and we can't really find out who he is. And just a little side note, it was a little difficult for us to get these numbers because pretty much for the whole month of September, both the No committee and the Yes committee were not properly filing their campaign finances with either Sonoma or Marin County. So as of October 8th, everything appears to be on the books. Okay, thank you.
Let's take your questions about Prop 2, Prop 11, SMARTS, Prop 8, Prop 4, please.
How long is the for Prop 10, the SMART train?
It's
Measure Q.
Measure Q.
Measure Q.
Smart.
How long is the projected bicycle pedestrian path?
70 miles.
70 miles.
Someone else?
This is going to Proposition 8.
Proposition 8?
Yeah, about the same-sex marriage. So if they got all the rights of a married couple, man and woman, would they be allowed to adopt as well?
Yes.
Adopt children?
Yeah, and there's a lot of for the yes on that. Well, a lot of the unintended consequences. I mean, I believe to this day anybody in a civil union can even do that, and there's a lot of talk about how this would force that to happen, but it's already in action. So it's not a whole lot of something new. It's just a factor to go from civil union to marriage, and they give a couple more legal rights.
Perry?
I have a broader question, not about any specific propositions, but about the proposition process. Given the fact that all of you have taken this time to study propositions here in California, what's your take on this whole process that we use in California to forward legislation via propositions? Any comments? Have you talked about that in your thoughts?
Joey, go ahead. Go on up there.
All right.
You might want to go to the mic. It might be easier.
Okay. Okay, I think that there's a small problem with the initiative and ballot measure process, and that's that there's not a whole lot of a filter on the process. It might be a little better if there was a legislative review of these ballot measures before they got on the ballot. I think that's about my whole criticism and commentary. A lot of these measures don't pass, and there's a whole lot of money spent campaigning on them, and they ultimately don't pass if they're struck down by a judicial action. So it might be better if there was a judicial filter on it before it went through.
Perry, 1 out of 3 that gets on the ballot roughly passes. 3 out of 4 that pass are found unconstitutional. So, but since 2000, there's been 13 elections in California. Of the ballot measure spending alone in the last 8 years, it totals over $2 billion. Just the campaign spending. $2 billion? $2 billion, $2.1 billion each. But most of them don't pass. California is one of 24 states that has this. We're not even in the top 5 in terms of how many we have on the ballot. There are other states that are ahead of us. Yes, right behind. Yes.
My opposition is it's very hard to find out who is actually backing this. And I think that needs to be part of the initiative that says right off who instigated and who is backing what.
Anybody want to take how difficult it is to find out who's behind a ballot measure? It's a difficult problem. But part of the problem is the reporting procedure is broken. Late contributions can go back to June. But what do you think will happen over the next, say, 19 or 20 days? Late contributions are going to be the normal course of events. So what's happening on the dynamics of Q or H or 4 becomes very difficult to track. So reporters get lazy and don't track it. So the students do. That's what it is.
Since the primary opposition to the teen pregnancy notify the parents proposition is it would delay the abortion, how much of a delay are we talking about?
48 hours. Upon a parent or guardian's receipt of written notification of the minor's intent to have abortion, the physician would have to wait 48 hours, and then they can perform the abortion.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about the number 2, the farm animals one. I'm really confused by this one, and I think that part of my confusion has to do with the backing process, and that different groups are backing it, and I kind of have some sympathy for both of the sides. Are we really going to lose our eggs?
According to the UC Davis study, they estimate that we will. That they'll relocate out of state or to Mexico because of the increased production costs.
Where did the funding for that study come from?
It's important to note that the Humane Society sued the UC Davis study because they accused them of not reporting who funded it. It was later found that the UC system did fully fund that study.
Have other states tried this kind of stuff?
From what I found, I don't have information on that.
Thank you.
Please.
Just really quickly about Prop 4. So the parents don't have to give their permission; they just have to be notified about it.
Right. It's federal. Under federal law, it is up to a minor to receive an abortion unless a state has a specific law in the books saying otherwise. And this proposition would only require that the parents or guardians be informed, not give consent.
Okay. Thank you.
On Prop 4 again, so confidentiality at say Planned Parenthood, those are the physicians really having to call and notify the parents, right? I mean, they're really going to be affected by
Yes.
that.
They are the ones that will be probably the most affected, and they are they are the main people in opposition to this proposition. They've given over 75% of the money in to defeat this proposition. It's things of like the logistics of physicians having to notify the parents and things like that, like all the paperwork and the red tape that they're going to have to cut through to deal with this if it's passed.
So what percentage of parents whose children or their daughter has an abortion doesn't know about it?
Who doesn't know about it?
Yeah, so that it would be applied to that, because that's really a group of clients there.
I don't actually have a statistic on that. I'm sorry, but I can get that for you. It's a good question.
I have a question regarding Prop 5 and 6. It sounds like they're both, one kind of funds more for treatment programs and the other funds prisons regarding the treatment programs. But what I've read about it is that only if they both have to pass in order for one to work. Can you guys kind of clarify that for me?
What exactly is your specific question on Does it need Proposition 5? Is that your
Yeah,
question?
I'm just not understanding because I thought I read somewhere that said if you vote yes on 5, then you have to vote no on 6 in order for this for Prop 5 to work. So if you vote, how does that work? Have you read that or?
I have not seen anything about that. I would not know about Proposition 5.
I don't think that that would be the case, because Prop 5 is saying that there's going to be a committee formed that is going to decide, instead of a judge, who gets to go to rehab, and they're going to be more lenient as far as the programs for the rehab. Money's going to be going to rehab, and they're going to expand the current treatment. And so I don't know how. I don't think that's.
Proposition 6 is directly to encourage more spending, and also it'll add more violations in this sense. It'll add more penalties, like I talked about. How one thing I didn't mention was 14-year-olds who are 14-year-olds and over who are brought in for any type of gang-related or violent activity will automatically be mandated to be tried as an adult.
But they could have the option to go to the rehab that would be funded by Prop 5. Because Prop 5 is going to expand for any under 18. Marijuana misdemeanors will become infractions, and they can have the option to go to rehab to do different treatment programs.
You're right to argue that they're counter initiatives. This is a common initiative practice. It's to have things that are at odds with each other. That's very common. So you have the Law and Order 6, and you have the residential community-based treatment in number 5. They're at odds with each other. So what you might be seeing is literature that argues that if you support one, you can't support the other, or something like that, because they are at cross purposes. That's common in ballot measure politics. Please.
Is number 5 limited to under 18? Would they affect only people that are under 18?
No, it would affect anyone who is had a nonviolent offense. So, it's just saying that if you're under 18, you have more of an option to go to an expanded rehab program. That right now it might not be the case, but there's just different diversion programs. They're going to put more money into more diversion programs for the youth, but it's for anyone.
Anyone else? Please.
There had been a proposition last year or the year before about
36, are you thinking of?
possibly that it had passed, did it not pass? It was about diversion treatments.
I think it passed.
Did it?
I think it passed.
What number was that? Was that 36?
I think it was 36.
And the guy who's funding this one, the main funder, is the co-author of 36.
There wasn't a funding mechanism provided in 36. There are more funding mechanisms provided in Courtney's ballot measure. Yes.
Prop 7, what percentage of the legislature oppose it, and what's the reason?
Right now, it's going to be both Democrats and Republicans that are against it, as well as the Sierra Club and some other major groups. Only group that seem to be in support of it is the Apollo Group Corporation and Jim Gonzalez Associates. The Republicans, Democrats, and Sierra Club are all saying that it's a poorly worded measure. It has, it'll do more harm for renewable energy in California than good. That's their main reason for not supporting it.
Anyone else? Yes.
Proposition 10, it says it's funding for natural gas. Does that include other things like renewable energy, like solar?
Yes, they're going to, I think that it was saying some counties, some counties, they will, it's also funding research and development of renewable energy sources and alternative fuel things. So it's going to go towards a bunch of different renewable energy, like solar for different buildings, and they're going to educate elementary school and high school students on this. And then also they want to give grants to colleges to also teach students about, so they go into careers that are more geared towards renewable energy and alternative fuels.
Please.
Also on Prop 10, it says on the arguments in favor of it, the rebuttal to the arguments in favor of it, it says that it would all but exclude hybrids. And in the arguments in favor of it, it says it would include hybrids or among vehicles that get at least 45 miles per gallon. Do you know why they say it would all but exclude hybrids?
I don't know the specifics, but I know that arguments against the proposition were saying that it's not like the fine print, it's not geared towards certain, or it's only geared towards like the Prius. Is it as of now, the Prius would be the only vehicle that actually would benefit from and be able to receive the rebates that they're offering from the bonds. And so I'm not sure about specifics, but I know that the argument is that some vehicles won't even qualify for the rebate. And so that's why they're saying, well, why even bother?
Some environmentalists call it the Prius Protection Act. Because of the 45 mile threshold. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.